want to find more time for your sketchbook, draw in a variety of creative ways, and, well, fall in love with sketching again. Well, today I'm going to share with you 4 top tips for raising your sketching game and making sketching fun, easy, creative, and most of all, enjoyable. So my name is Susan Yates and I'm an artist, author, host of the annual 30-day sketching challenge and the Inspire membership. I sketch regularly, and over the years I have picked up some really helpful creative habits and practices that have helped make my sketching consistent but also fun and enjoyable. These are things that I share with my students on a regular basis, and I've seen them work time and time again. And the best bit is, nothing is rocket science. These are things that everyone can do to shift their mindset in small incremental stages to fall in love with sketching again. So let's dive in. So for tip number 1 in raising your sketchbook game, and probably one of the most important things that I have learned over the years, is to enjoy and love your materials. I think it's really important to play with your materials, to test out your materials, to see what they do and to experiment. There is nothing more empowering than understanding what your materials do and just simply creating with them for the love of it and the fun of it. Importantly, spend time in art shops. Purchase materials that you love, that you are drawn to and that you enjoy using. Now, if you do find that you have lots of materials and perhaps some of them, they're not really for you, don't feel that you have to keep hold of them or you must use them up. It is absolutely fine to donate your art materials to charity, to a grateful friend, to give them to your kids, or sell them any other way. It's okay to let go of art materials you're never going to use. And as a final tip, and as a way of filling those sketchbook pages, do a whole sketchbook page just trying materials out. I love to do little pages of colour swatches or scribbles using different types of fine liner pen. I make marks with my pencils, I mix my colours and paints and I see what happens. I'm not always using the materials to draw a something, I'm just testing out the materials, and you can fill so many sketchbook pages full of these wonderful materials. Now, the second point that I want to talk about is repetition and using repetition within your sketchbooks to find and build creativity. Now, this may sound a little counterintuitive because I do often talk about trying new things, experimenting, playing to kind of step out of your comfort zone, but I also do believe that there is a lot to be learned from repetition. For example, I have a project sketchbook where I have sketched a little cactus with the same pen and the same blue ink in every page of that sketchbook until I had finished. And what this does is it builds my skills within that material. So when you repeat the same material time and time again, you get more confident in that material. If you're constantly jumping from new material to new material every 5 minutes, you might find that you don't ever master any of them. So it's good to stick with one thing for a bit, let's say for a sketchbook maybe. Sometimes if we have a blank page, we get completely overwhelmed because the possibilities are too endless and are too big. So actually, by narrowing it down and repeating something several times, there's that comfort in the repetition. There's that easiness in knowing what we're doing, what's expected of us. And that way you've sort of taken the pressure off and you can allow yourself to be truly creative. Now for tip number 3, and I think this might be one of the hardest ones to take on board, I'd like you to attempt to let go of the end result and simply enjoy the process. Now, as grown-ups, as adults, we're often very fine-tuned to knowing what an end result should be, to succeeding, to achieving. That's kind of how our society is built. But I don't want to come to the sketchbook with a pressure on that I'm going to go wrong and that it has to be a really good sketch. I mean, that's a little bit stressful, and that's not what we want to achieve. I want to enjoy my sketching process. So something that you can do is kind of almost make sketching a ritual and a process in itself. So for example, you could choose a sketchbook that has beautiful paper that you love. You could make yourself a particular cup of tea or coffee or whatever drink you take when you're sketching and set it up next to you. Whatever you need to do to make the process of coming to your sketchbook enjoyable. And that can just be laying out your materials or having a space in your home that you sketch from. Because what we don't want to do is struggle through and stress through half an hour of sketching even, to get to an end result which we may or may not like. We have had 5, 10, 30, 60 minutes of wonderful creativity, and then if we get a good result at the end that we like, brilliant, and if we don't, does it really matter? It can help to have exercises that you can do in short bursts that are quick, that are messy, that are fun, because with those exercises we almost let go of it being a beautiful picture or representational to start with. Sometimes I find it's when we're trying to achieve something representational, we're drawing a mug, we're drawing a landscape, we're drawing something recognisable, we almost put more pressure on ourselves to make it realistic, but just because it's realistic doesn't mean it's better. A good scribble in a sketchbook is equally as amazing. Now for my fourth and final tip to raise your sketching game, I want to encourage you to have sketchbooks for all occasions. And what I mean by this is it's okay to have a range of sketchbooks that you use for a range of different things. I have some small sketchbooks that I carry in my pocket or my bag that are very good for being on the go and doing small doodles and little pieces of art. But I also have great big sketchbooks where I make bigger pieces of work, and perhaps they stay in my studio and they can get a bit messy and I fill them with big pieces of sketching and drawing. I will also have very cheap sketchbooks that I've picked up for £1 or £2 somewhere in a cheap stationery shop where the paper is disposable. And what that does is it takes the pressure off me being very precious about that sketchbook. If I know the paper is cheap and throw away, I tend to work on it with abandon, and I'll make marks and I don't worry about turning the next page and doing another mark and experimenting. But on the flip side, I also encourage you to buy sketchbooks that you adore. I've got loads of sketchbooks here in my studio, and this is just a small excerpt of them, a small snippet. And as a final bonus, and something that I find really helpful, is label your sketchbooks. Now I know this sounds really odd or strange or a little bit OCD, but I tend to work in my daily sketchbooks that are very, very similar. And so when they're on my shelf and they're all stacked up, I don't know which one is which. So I tend to put a piece of coloured masking tape or even a little label saying the months and the years from which I used it on it, so that I know that I can go back to it and look at it and know exactly what that sketchbook was and when I used it. So go buy some sketchbooks, enjoy your sketchbooks, use small ones, big ones, expensive ones, cheap ones, use all the sketchbooks and have fun with them. So remember with your sketching that this is your creative time and you can sketch whatever you want in whatever way you want. Take on board these 4 top tips that I have explained today and see if you can integrate just even 1 or 2 of these into your creative practice. Now, making big changes can be very hard, can be very daunting, so maybe just approach one of these tips at first. Try it out, see how it works for you, and then move on to another thing. All in all, it's the sketching journey that is the fun part. Now, it also might be worth watching my video There Are No Sketchbook Police, which discusses the concept of there is no wrong, because I truly believe that your sketchbook is a sacred space to play, to experiment, to express yourself. You can't sketch wrong. So have fun playing in your sketchbooks, hopefully many of them, and I'll see you in the next video. Happy sketching!